Let me ask you something. You sleep every night. But do you know that sleep is a weapon? A tool that can completely transform your life? Neville Goddard wrote an entire chapter in Awakened Imagination specifically about sleep. Because when the body sleeps, imagination is most awake. Welcome to Story Reads, and today we're breaking down Neville Goddard's book Awakened Imagination. This book came out in 1954. And it's one of his most complete and structured works. The book has 7 chapters. And each chapter opens a different dimension. The first chapter is Who is Your Imagination? The second is Highways of the Inner World. The third is Imagination plus Faith. The fourth is Sleep. The fifth is the Pruning Shears of Revision. The sixth is Persistence. And the seventh is Case Histories. So let's start from chapter 1. This book opens with a very simple but very large question. Who is your imagination? The first time you hear this question it seems very easy. Imagination? The pictures that form in my mind, that's imagination. But Neville Goddard says wait. That answer is very surface level. Let's look at this from a completely new angle. Neville opens this chapter with a very bold statement. He says imagination is not a means to an end. It is the end. Imagination is not a vehicle for reaching a goal. Imagination itself is what you need to see. What you need to understand. This can sound confusing at first. So let's understand it step by step. We all treat imagination like a tool. Like a hammer. Pick it up when you need it. Put it down when you're done. I need to make a plan, so I'll use imagination. I need to create something, so I'll use imagination. But Neville says imagination is not a tool that you use. Imagination is what you are. This difference is enormous. Here's one way to understand it. When you use a hammer, you are separate from it. You are not that hammer. But when you think, when you feel, when you hold something in consciousness, this is not separate from you. This is you. Imagination is not your activity. Imagination is your existence. Now Neville says something that is the foundation of this entire book. He says imagination equals God. Imagination is God. This sounds very strange when you first hear it. Maybe rejection arises immediately. How can this be? But Neville explains. And when he explains, it becomes very logical. He says in the Bible when Moses asked God what he should tell the people about who sent him, the answer came. I am that I am. I am what I am. What kind of name is this? It is a description. A pure state of being. God gave his name as I am. And Neville says, this I am within you, what is it? It is your own awareness. Your own being. Your consciousness. And this consciousness is what imagines. So God equals I am equals consciousness equals imagination. This is a chain. And every link is telling the same truth by a different name. Now a very important question. If imagination is God, and God is within you, what does that mean? Neville says it means that the creative force that people call God, the force that creates and sustains the entire universe, that force is within you. This is not a metaphor. This is literal truth. And when imagination is awakened, when it truly wakes up, you don't just know this truth intellectually. You live it. You experience it. But Neville also says something honest. He says most people's imagination is asleep. What is the difference between sleeping imagination and awakened imagination? Sleeping imagination means you look at your outer world. You react to it. You feel according to what is happening. And then you replay those same feelings in your imagination. Something bad happened. Imagination replays it. And more bad gets created. A loop. This is sleeping imagination. Awakened imagination means you stop reacting to your outer world. And deliberately, consciously, you imagine the reality you want. You become the cause. not the effect. This is a very fundamental shift. And this shift is only possible when you genuinely understand that imagination is not just your mental activity. Imagination is your divine power. Neville uses a quote from William Blake in this chapter. Blake was a very famous poet and mystic. And he had said things that align very deeply with Neville's teachings. Blake said one power alone makes a poet. Imagination. The divine vision. Neville says this is not just for poets. This is for every human being. Every person is a creator. Because every person has imagination. But as long as imagination is asleep, that creator has not become conscious. He is creating accidentally. From his fears. From his anxieties. From his old patterns. An awakened imagination means conscious creation. Now another very important concept that Neville explores in this chapter. He says there is a specific relationship between your imagination and your physical reality. Physical reality is the effect of imagination. Imagination is the cause. This seems backwards. We usually think physical reality shapes our imagination. When life is good, I'll feel good. When I have money, I'll feel secure. When the relationship is right, I'll be happy. But Neville says this thinking is a very big mistake. Because in this thinking, physical reality is being treated as primary. And imagination as secondary. When the truth is the opposite. Imagination is primary. Physical reality is secondary. Imagination comes first. Physical reality comes after. And when this truth genuinely lands, imagination awakens. Because then you know that to change physical reality, you don't change the physical reality. You change the imagination. Neville makes one more very important distinction in this chapter. He says there are two kinds of people. First, those who believe imagination and reality are two separate things. Imagination is fake, reality is real. Second, those who know that imagination is reality. The physical world is its reflection. The first group are victims. Things happen to them. The second group are creators. They create things. An awakened imagination is this transition. From the first toward the second. But Neville also gives an honest warning in this chapter. He says this transition is not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. Why? Because we have considered the physical world as primary for so long that it feels difficult to let go of that. When something challenging is happening outside, believing that imagination is more real, this is a very large inner leap. But Neville says this is exactly the leap that awakens imagination. And once this leap happens, once you genuinely experience that imagination created something, you can never go back. Because you saw it yourself. You lived it. This is awakened imagination. An awakening. A realization. That changes everything. Now the second chapter. Highways of the Inner World. This chapter goes one step beyond the first. The first chapter told you what imagination is. This chapter tells you how imagination works. What its pathways are. Neville opens this chapter with a very specific and interesting observation. He says we have highways to navigate the outer world. Routes. Maps. Going from one city to another, there is a specific route. Going into a building, there is a specific entrance. We know how to navigate the outer world. But how to navigate the inner world? Most people know nothing about this. The inner world is also a world. It also has routes. It also has highways. And Neville says learning to understand these inner highways, learning to travel on them, this is the real skill of awakened imagination. So what are these inner highways? Neville explains. In the inner world, movement happens. And that movement happens through states. States of consciousness. Neville says every state is a complete, self-contained world. When you're in a state of anxiety, you see threats everywhere. You don't see opportunities. Small things seem large. When you're in a state of gratitude, you find something to appreciate everywhere. When you're in a state of confidence, challenges seem manageable. Same outer world. But when states are different, the experience is completely different. Neville says this is why states are the real highways. Going into the inner world means deliberately entering a state. And this travel, this movement, is what imagination does. Now a very important question. How do we change states? Neville explains very specifically. He says states change through feeling. And feeling comes from imagination. This is a chain. Imagination, then feeling, then state, then reality. When you imagine something, and genuinely feel it, your state changes. And when your state changes, reality changes. This is the mechanism of the inner highway. But here Neville makes a very crucial distinction. He says most people are passive about states. A state happens to them. They don't choose the state. Something bad happened, automatically went into a bad state. Something good happened, automatically came into a good state. This is passive living. Awakened imagination means active living. You can deliberately, consciously, enter any state. Regardless of what the outer circumstances are. This is a very large power. And this is what consciously traveling the inner highway means. Now Neville introduces a very interesting concept in this chapter. He says to travel in the inner world, you need to use a specific technique. And that technique is living from versus looking at. Living from inside versus watching from outside. Let's understand this. When you imagine a desired state, there are two ways. First way. You watch it from outside. Like watching a movie. In which someone else is in your place. Success has come. But you are the observer. Second way. You live in it. Like a first person. You wear that state. Like a garment is worn. From inside. Neville says the first way, watching from outside, is like standing on an outer world highway and seeing the destination from a distance. The second way, living from inside, is like actually driving on that highway. And the one who actually drives is the one who reaches the destination. So inner highway means actually entering the desired state. Actually inhabiting it. Here's a very simple way to understand this. Say you want a specific outcome. A specific situation. Now there are two ways to imagine it. First. You imagine that situation is happening. And you're watching it. Second. You are in that situation. Seeing through your own eyes. Hearing through your own ears. Feeling through your own body. Neville says the second way is inner highway travel. In the first way there is distance. This is happening. In the second way there is presence. This is happening and I am here. And this presence is what actually creates movement in the inner world. Now Neville explores a very fascinating aspect in this chapter. He says the inner world has its own sense organs. Just as the outer world has eyes for seeing and ears for hearing, so does the inner world. But the inner world's sense organs are not physical. The inner world's seeing is imagination's visual faculty. The inner world's hearing is imagination's auditory faculty. The inner world's touching is imagination's tactile faculty. And when you travel the inner world, you engage these inner sense organs. This is why Neville keeps saying, when you imagine, don't just make a picture. See. Hear. Feel. Engaging all three inner faculties is traveling the inner highway. Neville shares a very interesting observation. He says people who are naturally successful, for whom things naturally work out, often don't know what they're doing. But if you observe, you'll see a pattern. Those people naturally live in desired states. They naturally feel desired outcomes. Their imagination is naturally on that inner highway that leads them to desired destinations. This is not an accidental gift for them. It is a pattern that can be learned consciously. An awakened imagination is the way to make that pattern conscious. Now another very important aspect of this chapter. Neville talks about the relationship between the inner and outer worlds. He says the inner world creates the outer world. But the outer world distracts the inner world. This is a tension. An ongoing challenge. When something challenging is happening in the outer world, the reality of the outer world is very loud. Very insistent. Very convincing. Look at what's happening. This is real. How will you ignore it? And many people surrender to this outer loudness. They leave the inner highway. Neville says a very large part of awakened imagination is staying on the inner highway despite the loudness of the outer world. This is difficult. But this is the most important skill. And how is this skill developed? Through practice. Every time the outer world distracts, and you deliberately return to the inner highway, that ability becomes stronger. This is exactly like physical training. The more practice, the stronger it gets. Neville closes this chapter with a very powerful statement. He says the inner world is the real world. The outer world is its echo. When you genuinely know this, genuinely feel this, you begin to travel the inner highways. And then your outer world, your echo, slowly starts becoming what is in your inner world. Now the third chapter. Imagination plus faith. This chapter answers a very important question. Why isn't imagination alone enough? Many people practice imagination. Imagine scenes. But nothing happens. Why? Neville explains in this chapter. Because imagination alone is not enough. Imagination needs a partner. And that partner is faith. But here Neville gives a very important clarification. He says faith doesn't mean what we usually think. We usually understand faith as blind trust in something. Believing without proof. Neville says this is an incomplete understanding of faith. Faith, in this teaching, is a very specific inner state. Faith equals the substance of things hoped for. This is a line from the Bible. From Hebrews. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is the substance of hoped for things. The evidence of things not seen. Neville explains this. He says faith means that inner certainty. That inner knowing. That confirms to you that your desired reality already exists. In the inner world. This is not belief. Belief has an element of hope. Maybe it will happen. Faith does not have that element. Faith says it is. Now let's understand this in a very simple way. Say someone planted a seed. What is the state of the person who has faith? This seed will grow. This is a fact. I know. No doubt. The state of the person without faith? It would be good if it grows. But who knows? These are two different inner realities. And these different inner realities create different outer realities. Neville says imagination helps you imagine the desired scene. Faith gives that scene substance. Reality. Without faith, imagination is an empty wish. With faith, imagination is a creative act. Now a very important question. How does faith come? Neville says very honestly that faith cannot be artificially created. I will force myself to believe. This doesn't work. Faith comes naturally. But through a specific process. Neville explains. Faith comes from action. What action? The action of imagination. When you genuinely, consistently imagine a desired state, live in it, feel it, a point comes when that state starts feeling natural to you. When that state feels natural, there is faith. This is a gradual process. It doesn't happen through force. It happens through practice. Neville explores a very interesting relationship in this chapter. He says imagination and faith are like a marriage. Imagination is feminine. Faith is masculine. This is not a gender statement. Neville means imagination is receptive. It receives. It makes the picture. Faith is active. It gives substance. It makes reality. And when these two are together, creation happens. This is why imagination alone doesn't work. And where would faith alone go without any specific direction? Both need to be together. Imagination gives direction. Faith injects substance into that direction. Now Neville describes a very specific practice in this chapter. He says the most effective way to feel faith is this. Act as if it is already done. As if it is already done. This act as if is not just about outer behavior. It is about inner state. In the inner world. Act as if it is done. Feel as if it has already happened. And this feeling is faith. When you genuinely feel that the desired outcome already exists, inner certainty comes. And that inner certainty manifests outside. Neville brings in a very important example from the Bible in this chapter. He refers to the story of the centurion. A Roman centurion of very high rank came to Jesus. His servant had a fever and was very sick. Jesus said he would come and heal him. But the centurion said no. You don't need to come here. Just say the word. And my servant will be healed. Jesus was very impressed. He said, such faith I have not seen in all of Israel. Why does Neville bring this story? Because the centurion's faith meant he needed no physical proximity. No physical evidence. There was just an inner knowing. It will happen. And that inner knowing is faith. Neville says when this inner knowing comes in your imagination, when physical evidence is no longer needed, when you simply know that it is, then your imagination comes into real power. Now another very important concept in this chapter. Neville talks about the role of outer evidence. He says many people want to feel faith from outer evidence. When a little change appears, then I'll believe. When some signs come, then faith will arrive. Neville says this approach is backwards. Faith does not come from outer evidence. Outer evidence comes from faith. Faith first. Evidence after. This is spiritual law. And this is practical reality. When you're genuinely in faith in your inner state, when inner knowing is there, outer evidence automatically comes. And when you wait for outer evidence for faith, faith never comes. Because outer evidence always reflects the current inner state. And if there is no faith in the current inner state, outer evidence won't come either. There is only one way to break this loop. Choosing faith in the inner state. Deliberately. Without outer proof. This is imagination plus faith. This is that combination that actually creates. Neville closes this chapter in a very beautiful way. He says imagination is the land you want to go to. Faith is the vehicle that takes you there. Without a vehicle you keep seeing the land. You won't arrive. And without land the vehicle has no direction. Both together. And the journey begins. Now the fourth chapter. Sleep. This chapter is the most unique and most practically powerful chapter in this entire book. And this chapter directly connects to the hook this script opened with. Every night you sleep. But have you ever thought that sleep is not just for resting the body? Sleep is a very large creative opportunity. Perhaps the largest one in your entire day. Neville presents sleep in this chapter in a way you may have never thought about before. He opens with a very important observation. He says when we are awake, our conscious mind is very active. This conscious mind is very logical. Very critical. Very skeptical. When you try to do some positive imagination, the conscious mind immediately questions it. Is this possible? How will it happen? This is unrealistic. This conscious mind is like a gatekeeper. That questions every new idea, every new imagination. Challenges it. And very often blocks it. Reaching the subconscious mind directly is difficult when the conscious mind is this active. But when sleep comes, when the body starts drifting towards sleep, this conscious gatekeeper starts to relax. And slowly, the grip of the conscious mind loosens. And the subconscious mind becomes directly accessible. This is the time when imagination goes most directly, most powerfully, into the subconscious. Without any resistance. Neville calls this the state akin to sleep. The state resembling sleep. He says this state, which is between normal waking and full sleep, is the golden zone. And whatever imagination, whatever feeling, you hold in this golden zone, goes very deeply into the subconscious. And the subconscious is what actually manifests. So what is the practical meaning of this? Neville explains very specifically. He says every night before sleep. When the eyes are getting heavy. When thoughts are slowing down. In that drowsy state. Deliberately, go into that desired scene. That specific scene that represents your desire as already fulfilled. Stay in it. Feel it. And then fall asleep with that feeling. This sounds very simple. But it is very powerful. Now Neville explains in this chapter why this works. He says the subconscious mind has no sense of time. This is a very important point. Let's understand it properly. The conscious mind knows time. Past, present, future. This isn't now. This will happen in the future. But for the subconscious mind, everything is now. Whatever the subconscious feels is, for it, the present reality. So when you genuinely feel a desired scene in SATS, as if it is happening right now, the subconscious takes it as the present reality. And the subconscious's job is to produce that reality in the outer world. So the subconscious gets busy overnight in the process of producing that desired reality. This doesn't happen literally overnight. But the process begins. And consistently, night after night, this process becomes cumulative. It builds up. Until the outer world begins to reflect that inner reality. Neville introduces a very fascinating concept in this chapter. He says sleep and creation have a deep connection. In the Bible, when God created, He created from the first to the sixth day. And rested on the seventh day. Neville says this pattern is symbolic. Rest has a role in creation. When you actively, consciously hold a desired state, this is creation. And when you release it and fall asleep with that feeling, this is rest. And this rest, this sleep, actually deepens creation. Strengthens it. Because in sleep, without the interference of the conscious mind, the subconscious processes that desired state more deeply. This is why people who are in a desired state before sleep often find the next day that their energy is different. Their clarity is different. Their confidence is different. Because the subconscious deepened that desired state through the night. Neville explores another very important aspect in this chapter. He talks about the importance of the last thought, the last feeling, before sleep. He says whatever the last thought, the last feeling, is before sleep, it determines the entire night's processing. If you fall asleep with the day's problems and worries, the subconscious will process those same problems all night. And the next day, more problems. Because the subconscious deepened them. But if you deliberately, consciously, fall asleep with the feeling of a desired state, the subconscious will process that desired state all night. And the next day, a shift toward that desired state. A change. It may be slow at first. But it is consistent. This is a very simple concept. But don't underestimate the power of truly practicing it. Neville outlines a specific practice in this chapter that he makes very clear. Step 1. Physical relaxation. Before sleep. Relax the body completely. Lie down in a comfortable position. Deliberately loosen every muscle. Start from the feet. Gradually move upward. Until the whole body is relaxed. This physical relaxation helps the conscious mind relax. Step 2. Mental slowing. Let thoughts slow down. Don't try to stop them, just don't engage with them. Like a busy road. Cars are coming. You're watching. But you're not getting into any of them. Step 3. Enter the scene. When you are sufficiently relaxed and thoughts have slowed, deliberately enter that specific desired scene. That one moment. That specific instant. That represents the desired outcome as already fulfilled. Step 4. Live it from inside. Don't watch that scene from outside. Be in it. Like a first person. See. Hear. Feel. Engage your imagination's sense organs. Step 5. Feel and sleep. Holding that feeling. Fall asleep. That's all. Neville says this practice, done consistently, gives very powerful results. But consistency is necessary. One night is not enough. Every night. Because every night's practice is cumulative. It builds. Now Neville addresses a very important question in this chapter. What if doubt comes while imagining the scene? This is a genuine concern. Neville's answer is that doubt belongs to the conscious mind. And when you are properly relaxed, in sats, the conscious mind is relaxed. So doubt reduces. But if it comes anyway, acknowledge it. And return to the scene. Again and again. Just like in meditation, thoughts keep coming. And you keep bringing focus back. Same way. Doubt came. Noticed it. Return to the scene. This is the practice. It won't be perfect the first time. But it gets a little better every night. Neville shares a very interesting observation in this chapter. He says dreams are related to the sats practice. When you regularly sleep with a desired scene, dreams related to that scene often come. This is a sign that the subconscious has absorbed that imagery. And in dreams that processing continues. Neville says pay attention to dreams. They are often a reflection of your inner state. If dreams are changing. If they are becoming more positive, more hopeful. This is a sign that the sats practice is working. One last, very important point in this chapter. Neville says sleep is the most powerful imagination practice. But it only works when the time before sleep is conscious. If at night you're scrolling your phone, watching news, thinking about arguments, and then suddenly fall asleep, the last input that goes to the subconscious is that. This is why Neville suggests consciously protecting the time before sleep. This is your most valuable creative time. Use it wisely. Now the 5th chapter. The Pruning Shears of Revision. This chapter is perhaps the most practically transformative chapter in this entire book. And its title is very poetic. The Pruning Shears of Revision. Pruning shears are the scissors a gardener uses to cut old, dry, dead branches. So that space is made for new, healthy growth. Revision means going back. Seeing again. Rewriting. So the pruning shears of revision means cutting those old, negative, limiting experiences that are deeply rooted in your subconscious, so that new, positive growth can happen. This concept is very simple. But its depth is very great. Neville opens this chapter with a very important realization. He says your current reality is the result of your past imagination. This statement is very important. What is in your life right now, the situations, the relationships, the financial state, all of this was first in your subconscious. And it got there when you felt it repeatedly, consistently. Intentionally or unintentionally. Now here is a problem. There are many past experiences that you have replayed again and again. Felt again and again. And they have made deep roots in the subconscious. An old rejection. A big failure. Something someone did to hurt you. The embarrassment that happened. All these memories are in the subconscious. And they keep attracting similar situations going forward. Because whatever pattern the subconscious holds, it keeps producing it. So what is to be done? Can the past be changed? Physically? No. But can the effect of the past be changed? The emotional charge? The pattern? Neville says yes. And the way is revision. Revision is this: experiencing that past event, in your imagination, differently. As if it actually happened in a different way. Let's understand this with a simple scenario. Say someone tried to speak in front of a large group a long time ago. And they got nervous. The words wouldn't come. Everyone watched. There was much embarrassment. After that day, every time there was a chance to speak, that nervousness was felt. That pattern repeated. Because that original embarrassing experience was deeply rooted in the subconscious. Now revision. At night. In SATs. Imagine that old event. But this time. Differently. Speaking confidently. Words coming out clearly. The group is engaged. Appreciating. Feel that new version. As if it actually happened that way. Neville says two things happen from this. First, the emotional charge of that original event dissolves. Second, a new pattern goes into the subconscious. Just as strong. And in the future, that old pattern of nervousness becomes weaker. The new confident pattern becomes stronger. This is very powerful. But Neville adds a very important nuance here. He says revision is not just for traumatic or big events. Revision is a daily practice. At the end of every day. Whatever happened in that day that you wanted to go differently, revise it. A conversation that didn't go well. Revise it. A situation that was uncomfortable. Revise it. A decision that feels regrettable. Revise it. At night in SATs. Imagine those events again. The desired way. This daily practice works on multiple levels. First, those negative events don't settle into the subconscious. Second, positive patterns accumulate. Third, in the future, similar situations are naturally handled better. Neville makes a very important philosophical point in this chapter. He says the past is not fixed. This sounds strange. The past is done. It's fixed. But Neville explains. Physical events. Yes, those cannot be changed. But the meaning of those events. Their emotional impact. Their ongoing effect. That can change. Through revision. Because the subconscious doesn't store past physical events. The subconscious stores the feeling of those events. And when you change the feeling of those events through revision, what is stored in the subconscious changes. And what changes in the subconscious produces different results in the future. This is why Neville says the past is not dead. The past is always influencing the present through the subconscious. And revision is the tool for changing that influence. Now another very important concept in this chapter. Neville talks about revision and other people. He says revision is not just for your own experiences. Revision can happen about someone else too. Say you had a difficult conversation with someone. Both said some harsh things. Usually what happens? Both mentally replay that conversation. Negative assumptions about each other become stronger. And next time they meet? More tension. Revision. Imagine that conversation as it actually was warm, understanding, and loving. Genuinely feel that revised version. And watch. Next time that other person comes in front of you, something will be different. Maybe their energy is a little different. Maybe the conversation goes differently. Because your inner state changed. And inner state is what shapes the outer world. Neville says this is not magical. This is psychological reality. When you change your inner state about someone, the way you subtly behave with them changes. The energy changes. And that person senses that change. And responds differently. This is a chain of cause and effect. Inner change, then behavior change, then their response change. Revision is the beginning of that chain. Now Neville gives very practical guidance in this chapter. When to revise. He says the ideal time for revision is at night, in Sats. But any quiet, relaxed moment works. The afternoon when there's nothing to do. A quiet morning. Revision is not a long process. Just a few minutes. Imagine that event. The desired way. Feel it. Done. Simple. But regular. Neville says daily revision. This is a habit to build. And the compound effect of this habit is very large. Every day a little cleaning. Of old negative patterns. And every day a little planting. Of new positive patterns. Over months. This accumulates. And a major shift comes in life. Neville uses a very beautiful analogy in this chapter. He says a gardener manages his garden a little every day. Prunes dead branches. Waters new plants. A little work every day. And over time. A beautiful, thriving garden. If he did one big cleanup weekly and ignored it the rest of the time, the garden wouldn't be as good. Daily attention is necessary. Same way. Daily revision. Daily pruning of negative experiences. Daily planting of desired states. This is the pruning shears of revision. And this chapter explains that same daily practice, that same daily garden maintenance. Now the 6th chapter. Persistence. Staying with it. This chapter answers the question that almost every person who tries to apply these teachings asks. I tried. Nothing happened. Why? And Neville's answer is in one word. Persistence. But behind this one word is very great depth. Let's understand it properly. Neville opens this chapter with a very honest observation. He says most people start imagination practice. A few days. A few weeks. Maybe a month. And when dramatically immediate results don't appear, they think this doesn't work. And they quit. Neville says this is the biggest mistake. And he explains why. He gives a very interesting parallel. He says think of someone who starts going to the gym. First day. Second day. Third day. Looks in the mirror. No visible change. A week later. Looks in the mirror. Still no visible change. Would he conclude that exercise doesn't work? No. Because he knows physical transformation takes time. Inside, much change is happening, even before outside shows it. Neville says inner transformation works exactly the same way. When you practice imagination, change happens inside. Patterns shift in the subconscious. New beliefs take root. But this inside work takes time to show outside. And in this time, when change is happening inside but hasn't shown outside yet, this is the window where most people quit. Neville calls this window the interval. The interval between the inner shift and the outer manifestation. And he says those who stay with it through this interval see results. Those who quit during this interval don't. Persistence means staying with it through this interval. Now Neville explains why this interval actually happens. He says imagination works immediately at the inner level. When you genuinely feel a desired state, an inner shift happens in that moment. But the outer world, which is a reflection of the inner world, catches up with some delay. Because in the outer world there are existing patterns. Existing momentum. A large ship doesn't change direction immediately. It takes time. Same way. The outer world takes time to reflect the inner change. Neville gives a very beautiful example. He says think of a pregnant woman. A life form is developing inside. Very complex changes are happening. Inside. But outside? Perhaps nothing visible in the first weeks or months. Would she conclude that the pregnancy failed? No. She knows the process is happening inside. And she trusts it. Neville says trust your desired imagination the same way. The process is happening inside. Even when outside doesn't show it yet. Trust the process. Stay persistent. Now Neville explores a very important question in this chapter. What does persistence mean? Does it mean mindlessly repeating the same scene every day? He says no. Persistence doesn't mean mechanical repetition. Persistence means genuinely living in that desired state. Consistently. What is the difference? Mechanical repetition. I'm imagining this scene. Now I'll keep doing it. Like a robot. Genuine persistence. This desired state is mine. I live in it. Every day. As much as possible. In the first. The scene is a task. In the second. The desired state is a way of being. Neville says genuine persistence is the second one. And for this it is necessary that the desired state is meaningful to you. Real. Important. When it is genuinely important, persistence comes naturally. When it is a forced exercise, persistence is difficult. This is why Neville keeps saying the desire must be genuine. What you actually want. Not what you think you should want. Now Neville addresses doubt in this chapter. Persistence's biggest enemy. He says doubt is the most common reason your imagination doesn't work well. When doubt comes, it becomes a counter-imagination. This will happen. This is one imagination. But maybe it won't happen. This is the counter-imagination. Both running together. Canceling each other out. And the result? Nothing. Neville says the way to deal with doubt is this. Notice the doubt. Don't fight it. Fighting makes doubt stronger. Just notice it. And return to the desired state. Again and again. Just like in meditation, thoughts come. And focus returns again and again. Same way. Doubt came. Noticed it. Return to the desired state. This is the practice. And this is persistence. Neville makes another very important point in this chapter. He says outer circumstances often feel like tests. When you are imagining a desired state, and contrary outer evidence comes. I'm imagining prosperity. And an unexpected bill arrived. I'm imagining health. And a new symptom appeared. These moments are very challenging. Because the outer evidence is very loud. And it loudly says look. Your imagination isn't working. This is real. Neville says these moments are actually tests. And passing those tests is persistence. Passing the test means acknowledging the outer evidence. But not letting it change your inner state. Yes, this bill came. But my inner state is of prosperity. And this state is my real reality. This is not easy. Especially when the outer evidence is very challenging. But Neville says this is exactly the moment when imagination is most tested. And this is the moment when persistence is most valuable. Those who stay with it in these moments. Who acknowledge outer evidence but hold their inner state. They eventually manifest the desired reality. Neville gives very grounded and practical advice in this chapter. He says treat persistence as a day-by-day commitment. Not a forever burden. I have to do this forever. This thought is overwhelming. Instead, tonight, in Sats, I will go into the desired state. Just tonight. Just today. And tomorrow. Just tomorrow. One day at a time. And these days accumulate. And results come. This approach is much more sustainable. And actually more effective. Because when you think forever, anxiety comes. When you think just today, it's manageable. Neville closes this chapter with a very powerful statement. He says the thing is, God, or imagination, never fails. Imagination always delivers. What you consistently, genuinely imagine, manifests. The only question is whether you are consistent. Whether you are genuine. And whether you stay with it through that interval when change is happening inside but hasn't shown outside. If yes, the result is inevitable. This is what persistence means. Now the seventh and final chapter. Case histories. This chapter is the part of this entire book that gives the teachings their grounding. Not abstract concepts. Real experiences. Neville shares in this chapter the experiences of people who applied these teachings and got results. But the purpose of these experiences is not just inspiration. The purpose is to demonstrate how these principles actually work. In real life. In real situations. So let's understand these experiences. And pay attention. In all these cases there are patterns. Common elements. That appear in every case. Those patterns are the real teaching. The first case. There was a person who wanted a specific job. A position that felt very meaningful to him. Where he could genuinely contribute. But the situation was very complicated. That position was not officially open. There was no indication the company would create one. In outer world terms. This seemed impossible. He chose a specific scene from Neville's teaching. What was that scene? He is working in that office. A colleague is discussing a project with him. And he is genuinely in that job. Every night. In Sats. He would go into that scene. Feel it. Within a few weeks. That company restructured. A new position was created. That was exactly the right fit for him. And he received an offer. What was the pattern? Specific scene. Genuine feeling. Consistency. And trusting the process even when the outer world showed no signs. The second case. There was a relationship that had become very strained. Between two close people. Words had been said. There was hurt. There was distance. The person used revision. Every night. Those difficult conversations were imagined. But the desired way. Warm. Understanding. Loving. As if they had actually happened that way. And gradually. Within a few weeks. The other person started initiating. Reached out. And the relationship began to heal. What was the pattern? This case was specifically a demonstration of revision. And also that revision happens in the inner world. There was no need to say or do anything different in the outer world. Inner change. Outer reflection. The third case. A person had a very deep financial problem. There were bills. Debts. No way forward was visible. The person decided not to let outer circumstances dictate his inner state. Every night he imagined a scene. In which he was financially secure. Bills were being paid with ease. There was a sense of ease. And he felt that scene every night. As if it was already real. Within a few months. An unexpected opportunity came. From an old connection. Which became a new income stream. This was not planned. It was a bridge of incidents. What was the pattern? Imagination gave direction. And the subconscious created a path in that direction. A path that was not consciously visible before. The fourth case. There was a person who was very unhealthy. There were multiple health issues. And he kept replaying these issues in his mind again and again. This problem is there. That problem is there. This replay had set those health issues even deeper in the subconscious. He decided to change his inner dialogue. Whenever a thought about health came, he deliberately shifted it in the direction of a healthy, vital, energetic self. Every night. In Sats. He imagined scenes of feeling healthy. Active. Energetic. Free of pain. Gradually. Over months. His health began to improve. Tests showed positive changes. What was the pattern? Imitative imagination, which replays what we're already seeing, was replaced by creative imagination. And the subconscious, which was previously reinforcing health issues, began reinforcing healthy states. The fifth case. There was a student. An exam was very important. Career determining. And he was scared. In the past he had not performed well in exams. In his subconscious there was a failure pattern. That activated before every big test. He used revision. Old exams that didn't go well, he began revising them. In imagination. The desired way. And for the upcoming exam. In Sats. He would imagine a scene in which he was walking out of the exam hall. Confident. Satisfied. With certainty that the results would be good. When the exam came. For the first time he genuinely felt centered. Results came out well. What was the pattern? Revision pruned the old failure pattern. And consistent Sats practice planted a new success pattern. The sixth case. There was a creative situation. Someone wanted recognition in a specific project. In a creative field. They felt in imagination the scene where that recognition was there. Real and genuine. Specific. Within a few weeks, in an unexpected way, their work was noticed in a place they hadn't expected. And recognition came. The pattern. The specific feeling of the desired outcome. And a specific scene. Without dictating how it would happen. Imagination told the subconscious what. Not how. And the subconscious figured out the how. The seventh case. There was a situation in which a very stressful decision had to be made. The person was paralyzed. Problems were visible in every option. They tried a different approach. Every night. In Sats. They imagined that state. Where the decision had already been made. And they felt at peace about it. Clear. Certain. They didn't specify which decision to take. Just felt that state of peace. And within a few weeks. Clarity came. One option naturally started feeling right. And the decision became easy. The pattern? Taking imagination to the desired feeling. Not dictating specific outcomes. Inner peace, then outer clarity. Looking at all these cases. There is a common thread. Neville explicitly states that thread at the end of this chapter. He says every case had these elements. First. A genuine desire. Second. A specific, clear, sensory scene that represented the fulfillment of that desire. Third. Genuine feeling. Not mechanical repetition. Fourth. Consistency. In Sats. Daily. Fifth. Trust in the interval. When the outer world wasn't showing results. And sixth. Letting go of the how. Imagination told the what. The subconscious found the how. Neville says every case was unique. Circumstances were different. People were different. Outcomes were different. But the process was the same. Because the process is a law. And laws don't change. Gravity works every time. Whoever uses it. Imagination also works every time. Whoever uses it. One condition only. Use it. Genuinely. Consistently. Now let's look at all 7 chapters together. Chapter 1 told us who imagination is. It is divine creative force. It is God. It is you. Chapter 2 told us the highways of the inner world. States. and how to travel them deliberately. Chapter 3 told us. Imagination alone is not enough. Faith is needed. That inner knowing that the desired reality already exists. Chapter 4 told us. Sleep is the most powerful creative opportunity. Desired scene in Sats. Last feeling before sleep. This directs the subconscious. Chapter 5 told us. Daily revision. Pruning of the past. Planting new patterns. A garden metaphor. Chapter 6 told us. Persistence. The interval. How to deal with doubt. Day by day. Not overwhelmed by forever. Chapter 7 showed us. These principles work in real life. In multiple situations. For multiple people. And most importantly, what is the real message of this entire book? Neville Goddard says the awakening of imagination is not a dramatic event. It is a gradual shift. A shift. Where you stop being at the mercy of outer circumstances. And start being the conscious creator of your inner states. When imagination is asleep, the outer world decides you. When imagination is awakened, you decide the outer world. How does this shift happen? Through daily practice. Every night Sats. Every day revision. Awareness every moment. And persistence through that interval when the inner shift is happening but the outer hasn't shown it yet. And one day, you will have a small experience. Something you imagined. And it came. It will seem like a coincidence the first time. Then a second experience. A third. And at a certain point, you will realize. This is not a coincidence. This is a law. And that realization. That moment when you genuinely, experientially know that imagination creates reality. This is awakened imagination. An awakening. That moves from intellectual to experiential. And when this happens, you are not the same as you were before. Because you discovered the power that was always within you. Imagination. Your divine creative power. Awakened.